Hello, and welcome to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. We are on the Zooms today with Heather Frost. Heather is a foster parent coordinator with Embrace Treatment Foster Care. Haven't had Embrace on the show since way back in 2019, Heather, and I'm sure you are relieved that these shows are no longer live like they were back in 2019. This is a lot more convenient, isn't it?
And yes, I think this is a much better way.
Since you haven't been on in a while, since Embrace hasn't done the show with me in a while, can you give a little bit of background about who you are and what Embrace Treatment Foster Care does?
Yes, we are a treatment foster care agency. And what we do is we certify homes to be certified foster homes for children who have come into foster care. And so we help families get certified, stay certified, provide case management, support, anything that they need to be successful foster parents.
Is there an age limit? Do you only do certain age range of children, or does it run the gamut?
It runs the gamut, 0 to 18. And then sometimes children go into independent living situations and go to college, and there's things after that that can happen, but 0 to 18 foster care.
I would imagine a lot of the kids that you serve are probably in that teenage age range, though, right?
That's right. You can look at the Virginia Department of Social Services. They report out their statistics annually. And in the whole state at any given time, there's about 5,000 kids in care. 40% of them are 13 or older. And they're the hardest to place groups. Those are the kids that are really in need of permanency, of stability, and a chance to get to grow from where they are, but they need stability in a foster family to be able to do that.
And when we talk about the fact that you are based in Winchester, you don't just wholly serve Winchester. You've got a much larger geography, a much larger range of
Mhm.
locations that you serve.
Right. We don't have a steady map with a boundary line. So from Winchester is where our offices are located for this locality. And we try to be able to respond within an hour away from Winchester in any direction, give or take. So we do all the surrounding counties, Clarke, Frederick County. I go as far as Harrisonburg and up to Loudoun sometimes.
We're going to get in the weeds a little bit on why having some foster parents in all of those locations is really important, particularly to the kids that they're fostering. But can we talk for a second about the treatment foster care? You're usually dealing with children who maybe have ADHD or ADD, or maybe they're on the spectrum, things along those lines. So treatment is also involved when you take on the responsibility of being a foster parent.
That's right. Treatment foster care is a higher level of care than your traditional foster care that the Department of Social Services would have a family certified under them as traditional foster care. So our level of treatment is higher. And we do consider our foster parents as a part of that treatment. We do training, and we provide, even after the initial certification training is done, we do training every month and keep foster parents updated on new things coming out, new information coming out, or just going over different strategies, or depending on children they might have a specific training for that type of situation that they're dealing with. So it is a higher level of care that we provide.
You are on the nonprofit committee for the Front Royal Chamber. That's how you and I had initially reconnected. And foster care is very near and dear to Nikki's heart at the Front Royal Chamber. She does the December business after hours. The donations that are collected at that event go to help foster parents cover some of the extras that aren't covered sometimes in the cost. Christmas gifts, camps, things along those lines. Nikki is always talking to me personally about the need for foster parents, that the need is so much greater than you actually have access to parents who want to do this.
Right. And anyone who's listening, you might know of people who have maybe cared for foster children, or situations maybe through your church or community. So you've probably been in some way touched by it, because that's how it is. The need is so great. And I would say, and if you're on the fence and just even thinking about what can I do, or are curious about it, I would say give us a call and let's talk about it, because the need is that great. We're looking for families from our areas, and families who want to help, who can be there, who can show up, who want to just care for children. That's what it's really about. We're caring for children because they need it. So we do look for families in the community, families that represent the communities that we are in, And I say communities because I'm in several different ones. That's what the children need. It's so important for them to be nurtured and helped by people who are like them, from their culture, from where they're from, who know the same, maybe people or people in the community they know, stay in their schools, be with their therapists maybe that they've had. These things, the research shows, really matter in terms of getting over the trauma that the kids have gone through. This is the things that help them to recover faster and to be resilient.
I could see where parents who have already raised their children or currently have children in the home would think this isn't as big of a lift as those who maybe have never had children might think, oh, I don't know that this is something I can do. But when you talked earlier about training, it's not like you just drop a kid off with a suitcase at somebody's front door and say, good luck. You really are involved in the care and, again, the treatment for those children with the parents.
That's right. Our foster parents become part of a team, part of a permanency team, we say, to help these kids along. We provide 24/7 support to our foster families, training, case management. They can call just for support or whatever that they need, and we can do it on the phone. We can come out in person, whatever kind of support they might need at that time. But then there's also the schools and the Department of Social Services and your community partners like Northwestern, private providers who help as well. So we become part of this team to really wrap around the kids, and that's where we find the most success.
I want to go back to something you said a second ago when we were talking about the age ranges and teenagers in particular, because you sent me some statistics before we got on the show. And one of those things was surprising to me is that more than 1,000 young people age out of foster care in Virginia without a permanent family, which in and of itself seems crazy high, like a crazy high number to me. But that increases their risk for homelessness, unemployment, and gets them sometimes involved in the justice system where it might not have happened had they had that stability before they aged out of the system.
That's right. You've had kids who've grown up after 18. That doesn't mean they don't need help anymore. They still need us. And kids who age out of care, that support for them is just non-existent. A good example of that is when the pandemic happened, we had older kids in colleges and stuff who lived at the dorms. And when the dorms closed, we had a huge problem of where to connect these kids to. And we met, the Department of Social Services did it, and you have to give them a big hand on the back for that. But that was a big eye opener, I think, why it's important to have a family, not just when you're a child and because you legally have to have one, but you need that support later in life too. You get a higher rate of being in the legal system or being unemployed or back into the system in some way.
When you add in autism, ADHD, some of these behavior and developmental challenges that kids often face, I imagine that makes it a little more scary for a parent to say, hey, I want to accept this challenge and I want to help this child or these children. But again, you give them all the tools that they need.
We have extensive training for behavioral modification strategies or how to be involved in the therapy and the treatment with this child who's experiencing those kind of things. And so there's a great support for that. The prevalence is just so great, especially with post-traumatic stress, and the ADHD is very high for the children that we have in our care.
Let's take a break. When we come back, can we talk a little bit about what it looks like locally here in the Shenandoah Valley and the surrounding areas so people get a sense of why it's important if they live in Warren County that they should maybe give this some thought, or if they're in Shenandoah County or any of our surrounding places. Can we talk a little bit about how it affects us right here in the Shenandoah Valley in the next segment?
That's great. Yes, let's do that.
We are on the Zooms today with Heather Frost. She is the foster parent coordinator for Embrace Treatment Foster Care. We're going to come back and learn how you could be a foster parent in just a couple of minutes.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org.
Welcome back to the Valley. Today, I am your host, Janet Michael. We are on the Zooms today talking with Heather Frost. Heather is a foster parent coordinator with Embrace Treatment Foster Care. We talked a little bit in the first segment about who could be a foster parent, which is practically anybody given the training and the support that you offer to your parents, Heather. But I'm curious as to what it looks like right here in our backyard, because a lot of times we do see these numbers on national news, or we see things on social media about the state of Virginia as a whole or nationwide as a whole. And I think we sometimes forget that these things happen, that foster parents are needed in Clarke County, Shenandoah County, Warren County. They're needed right here.
That's right. We talked about the big number, between 5,000 and 5,500 kids in foster care at any given time. So when we look into our localities across the Shenandoah Valley, we put Frederick County and Winchester together. So we combine them. They have at any given time between 120 and 150 children in care. And most of them are teenagers. And then in Shenandoah County, you get between 40 and 60 at a given time. Clarke County, the numbers are reporting out 15 to 25 each year, and they're smaller. But then in counties as big as like Loudoun County, we're looking at typically between 250 and 300 children in care at any given time. That's a lot of children, and it takes a lot of families to help care for them. And what happens, unfortunately, is when a child comes into care, and if there's not a family in their neighborhood or in their locality, their school district, and they have to be shipped away or sent further and further away, it's harder for them to reconnect. They lose those connections and some of the support that we were talking about before that you get in a family, your school and your therapist and your family that you might still be connected to. So having families in our localities is so important. We have so many children, and the need for the teenagers is very high.
I referenced an example earlier where they're basically orphaned. That's not necessarily the case for every child. So they may still be in touch with a parent, a grandparent, aunts or uncles. Those people may not necessarily be in a position to care for them, but having those family interactions and still being able to see them and continue that bond is incredibly important for these kids as they grow and mature to be successful in their adult life.
That's exactly right. That's how they are able to go beyond the trauma that they experienced coming into care, is to keep these connections and to maintain them throughout the time. Either if they do come back to their family or if they are adopted, they still have that connection. It's very important.
How does that typically work? So if I become a foster parent to, say, a 13-year-old, I'm guessing each situation is different. That 13-year-old may only be with me until they're 16, and then their circumstances change and maybe they can be reunited with their family, or there is the possibility that they would stay with me until they're 18 and beyond. Could I adopt them? Does that happen?
What we do in the state of Virginia is we dual certify our foster parents for both being foster parents and adoptive parents. So you get the certification for both when you go through the process. And then it's a family decision at that point. So if you have a kid who comes into your care and you've worked with them for many, many months, and maybe you thought they were going to return home and that was the plan at first, but for whatever reason, that was unable to happen. And then you're making these relationships and you decide for your family and for the child that adoption, and the child decides too that adoption is the best option because they couldn't reunify, then you're set to do that too. So we just keep the process going until that is all the way completed. So you can lead to adoption.
It really speaks to how having a stable environment. So you can have this kid, this child, teenager or otherwise, that has suffered some trauma, that has not had the greatest upbringing to a certain point, that now becomes a foster child in a stable family, in a family that has structure. They get to participate in after school activities, they get to make friends and settle in, that they truly do, in a lot of cases, become a different child based on the circumstances and the surroundings that they have in their day to day life. So I can see where somebody coming into a situation, maybe that kid is not the easiest to manage and to deal with, but after 6 months to a year, they also settle in. And it might be a really good choice to decide, you know what, this kid is part of our family now. And look at how well he's doing. Why would we want to disrupt that? And let's continue to have them move along in this forward moving progress.
That happens. It does happen a lot. A lot of times when I do events, like I do Apple Blossom and different events in the community with the big tent and it says embrace, and I'll have people come up and tell me their story of maybe they adopted someone or they were adopted or they've been through the foster care system. And it just makes me so happy to hear like all the stories that they want to share with me when that happens, and what a difference it made in their life, just having someone who cared about them.
It's also a good reminder that labels are hurtful. So being labeled as difficult as a child sometimes sticks with you for a really long time. But if you manage to get yourself into one of these situations with a foster parent who removes that label, how quickly kids can thrive.
That's right. And I hope people hearing who are thinking about becoming foster parents hear that too, that just because the child is labeled difficult or hard, getting stability, getting that structure, finding out that someone's going to show up for you all the time, that's a big part of it. The kids, especially the older ones, that come in and they think a lot of times this is just another place I have to be or something else that's been done to me. But once they build that trust and they know that this person's showing up for me, this person is here, that can change things a lot. And attitudes can soften and difficulties become easier. And I'm not going to say it's all butterflies and rainbows 100% of the time, but we get through the hard parts. And then the rewards are they're so much that you just I can't even put it into words. When a child and the foster parent, when they have that relationship and you see that and you get to watch it grow, it's just very beautiful to see.
And let's be honest, raising a teenager under any circumstances is never an easy chore, an easy task. There are many times that I would have labeled my own child difficult. There are days now at 30, I still consider him to be difficult. So it does come with the territory, no matter the situation.
It really does. But they give back so much when you've gone through some hard times and then you're getting to the end of it and you're just sitting there looking back on it and thinking how far we have come. And that does happen.
So, what do you say to someone who maybe is listening right now and they're thinking, you know, I never considered it, but now I might consider it, but I'm still just not sure. I don't know that I have what it takes, for example. What do you say to those people?
Hey, that's normal. I say reach out and call us and let's talk about what you're thinking and how you're feeling about it. And let's see what we have to offer. And let's talk about some of the reasons why it would be good. Or if you're on the fence, we can talk about what might be holding you back. But a conversation, that's what we do. We start with conversations and we move from there. When you reach out to us at our website or call us, there's no obligation. There's no cost to becoming a foster parent. We do all of that. We provide the training and the background checks and all of that. So there's no obligation, especially to just reaching out and getting more information.
Well, I want to expand on that for a second. So let's say I go through the process, I get certified, a teenager, for example, and I keep saying teenager because I know that's your greatest need,
Yes.
is placed with me and they do have therapy appointments or they have other medical issues that require them to see a doctor or take medication, things like that. Is that something the foster parent absorbs? How does the financial end of that work usually?
So all kids who come into foster care have Medicaid. First of all, when they come in, they get Medicaid. So that part is taken care of. There is also a stipend or money that comes with being a foster parent for clothing and different things. And it's all broken down very specifically in the trainings. But there is some monies that absorb those costs. I wouldn't say it's 100% funded because kids they come into, they need a lot of things, but the clothing, the expense for having to do these appointments and stuff, that comes through what we call a VMAT, and it's done on a scale depending on the need of the child, and all that's very individualistic, but there is compensation for that.
And I think the medical issue would be the biggest one. I mean, I would
Mhm.
assume that most people who decide this is something that they want to do, and I would imagine too, for a lot of people, it's a calling that once they are a
Mhm.
foster parent for one, they likely are foster parents for multiple children. But I think we understand that there's going to be some expense on our part. We're going to have to buy new blue jeans. If the kid wants to play sports, there are going to be things. And I mentioned that earlier with Nikki that she does some fundraising to help some of those things. But I wonder if one of the biggest barriers to people is I don't necessarily have money for medical bills. So it's really good to know that they come to them on Medicaid, and that's just not a worry or a burden that a foster parent really has to worry about.
No, no, not at all.
So, somebody listening today has had their interest piqued and now they want to start that conversation. How should they go about that? Where is the best first place for them to go?
So we have a website, of course, embracetfc.com, and the TFC is for treatment foster care, embracetfc.com. If you just Google Embrace, you'll get it from there. We'll ask some questions and you can dictate how much information you want to give. You can say you're just thinking about it, or you're really sure and you want to start classes, and you can give your contact information and say how you would like to be contacted. Do you want to be a phone call, or do you prefer email, or however, and then we will respond accordingly to that.
About how long does the process take to get certified?
We try to do it in 90 days, and it depends on the family too, and their schedule and how fast or slow they can go through the training. The classes that you take for the foster care training is probably the longest thing. There's like 12 chapters or so, and we break it down, usually 2 a session. So that's like 6. If you do it once a week, that's 6 weeks of classes.
And that's not terrible. That's a lot
It,
less time than I think a lot of people maybe thought it was.
Right. And we can do it virtually, or I try to get what the family wants to do. And sometimes we do it in groups, or it just depends on how many people's coming through at once. And then there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, but that's just in the beginning. And once that gets all set up, it's pretty seamless.
So before we wrap up, what do you want to leave our listeners with? Do you have any last words of advice or just some inspiration maybe for everyone?
I would say we're looking for families. We're not looking for perfect people. We're just looking for people who will show up, who will be there, who want to help children. And I would say if you're curious or if you want to help at all, reach out and let's have a conversation and see exactly what the best path forward would be in a foster care journey for you.
Heather, thank you for reaching out to me so that we could have this conversation today. I'll make sure that your phone number, email address, web links, all of that sort of thing are in the show notes at thevalleytodaypodcast.com. But I hope you are now inundated with calls from people who have some interest from all of our surrounding counties.
That would be so wonderful. We are here for them if they decide they want to. Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Janet. Appreciate it.
I will be back on Monday with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, just a few minutes after noon, so meet me here then.